Are we okay to start, Keith?
One moment.
Okay.
Yes, looks like we're good to go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. It is 9:33 a.m. and I'm going to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. First on our agenda is welcome and introduction of new commissioners, but before we do that, let's have everyone who is on the Zoom introduce herself or himself. My name is Chris Darcy. I'm the outgoing chair of the commission.
I'm Susan Apak. I'm commissioner.
Good morning. My name is Zach Hull. I'm a commissioner.
And our new commissioners?
My name is Barbara Sellers-Young.
My name is Janelle Lilly.
My name is Eduardo Diaz Salazar.
Welcome. And what about city staff?
My name is Keith Bondog-Wynn, and I am the staff liaison to Spac.
Good morning. My name is Courtney Knox Bush, and I was the liaison for Salem Public Art Commission. I'm currently serving in the city manager's office, and I do communications, legislative policy, strategic planning, and some organizational development.
Welcome. We are delighted to have 3 new commissioners join the Salem Public Art Commission.
Oh, Chris?
Yes.
We also have a guest.
Great. I can't see a guest on my screen, but guest, please speak up. Oh, Christy,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Christy Riddle, I'm here representing the mural that we hope to put on the Rivers building in July.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. New commissioners, Janelle, Barbara, and Eduardo. Would you like to say just a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in public art in Salem? Just a couple sentences, if anyone would like to go first.
I can start. Janelle Lilly. I manage campus planning for Salem Health, and under that role, I coordinate artwork for the hospital campus. So it is an interest of mine professionally, and I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of branch out and kind of personally pursue some of this and get some new exposure to working on public art in a different capacity. So,
welcome.
I'm Barbara Sellers-Young, and I have a long career in researching the arts, specifically both visual and performing arts. And I love being in Salem, and I've been so impressed by the public art that exists here and the web page that exists that guides you to it. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Welcome.
All right, my name is Eduardo. I've always been interested in art and public art, and I see, like, being born here in Salem, I see that we don't have too much public art compared to other big cities. And I do have a lot of friends that do murals in other major cities. So I would like to bring a little bit of that to our community in the future.
Great. Welcome, all of you. First thing on our agenda is public comment. And Keith, did we have any public comments submitted by email or otherwise?
No public comments submitted by email, but Christy Riddle has requested to say some few words at the beginning of this meeting.
Perfect. Christy.
Yes, thank you. As you all know, you're going to have a hearing on the 9th of November to hopefully approve the permit for our mural on the Rivers building. And I just wondered if there's anything I can do to help facilitate that other than what we're doing in the background. We're going to neighborhoods, businesses, and getting everybody to hopefully comment. And is there anything that you need from me? Also, I have a question. If in November 9th you approve it, is that immediate or do we wait to get the paperwork for the permit?
Keith?
It's immediate. However, the approval is based upon the easement documents being filed with our legal team. So I know that
Well,
it's being worked on in the
we just,
background.
yeah, we just had a meeting yesterday of the Front Street Mural Committee, and our attorney has been talking with your attorney. So I think they have that worked out, hopefully. So
Excellent. And that is a separate part than what Spac will be hearing. That
Okay.
easement documentation is more behind the scenes.
Okay. Well, would any of you like any information from me before that hearing?
I assume we're going to be getting a packet, Keith, that I don't really know too much about the mural. Did you send out a packet with photos and everything already? Maybe I just haven't looked at it yet.
Yes, public notice was posted on Monday, and there are 2 packets online on our website and emailed to the neighborhood association as well as SPAC. And they will, the public will have 30 days to make comment. And one week before the 9th, so on the 2nd of November, I will be posting the staff report with our recommendation for the mural, and that will also be presented at the meeting.
The only thing that I would suggest is that if individual members of SPAC could literally go to the site, look at the wall in question prior to the public hearing, I think it's very useful to kind of see the real setting. This is a big opportunity for downtown Salem. So I think just doing a walk by, on your own time, so you come in prepared to make, consider the request. Christy, would you like to add anything else? It sounds like people will be ready once they look at the packet, and looking forward to getting this public hearing, done. Any
Yes, I am too. Go ahead. Oh, well, I'm hopeful that everyone likes what they see, and if they have any question, they can certainly get a hold of me and answer questions. We will have the artist at the hearing next month. He's agreed to join us, and hopefully a couple of other people. I haven't talked to them yet to see if they can get away from their schedule, but hopefully we will.
Susan?
Yeah, I just, after the experience of reviewing the cherry mural and how there were some issues that cropped up right before the meeting, and, I just wanted to know if there's some way to really avoid that happening again. Hopefully with this mural, it'll be, smooth sailing and there won't be any surprises. But just wanted to say that.
Well, this wall is flat and there are no other obstructions in front of it. So I think we will not have the same situation. I have not reviewed the packet myself yet, but Keith?
I did send it to the our code compliance officer, who is responsible for signs. And if the SPAC approves of this painting, it is outside of the sign code and approved as a mural. So we are good to go on that front. And it's not in a historic district. It's right on the boundary, but it is not. So we are good on that respect as well. Multi-use buildings are approved for it. And so we're good to go. And also the majority of the tenants, owners of the condominium voted to approve of the mural. So we're good on that respect as well.
Over 88%.
Any other comments from the commission? All right, Christy, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Keith, did you have another comment?
No, I was waving by, sorry.
Sorry. All right, next on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. And for new commissioners, we approve the agenda for today and the minutes of our last meeting. This month, we are approving the minutes from the last 2 meetings because we didn't have a quorum. So I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'm moved to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. Next up is an update on the Public Works Operations Building. This is a big deal for the Public Works section of the city. It will basically provide a much more consolidated work and operations center in a building, a new building south of Mission Street. And there are several works of art that are planned so far. But Keith, what's the latest on this project?
Yes, I spoke with Alan Dannon, who is a project manager, and he has no updates from the artists. However, he is interested in information regarding informational signs and labels near the art pieces that'll be installed. I think he's looking for direction on the style, content, design. And so I'm not sure what the process was for the police stations, public art and how that was organized, but I think he's looking for some direction from you all.
Well, it's good for him to be asking now. I would suggest that he look at the labels that are in the library, because that work was done after the police station. And so there's information about the actual work of art, a very short bio for the artist, and then there was a word count under 200 words. It's if he is looking for an exterior plaque to be placed by the sculpture, we might want to just take a look at, or Spac might want to take a look at that. I also was up at Portland State University late last week and looked at some of the labeling there, which was done in both English and in Spanish. And I took a couple pictures because I thought that was a good thing. And I can share that with you, Keith, and with Alan. But for the new commissioners, there are two major art commissions associated with this building. One is an exterior sculpture by, is it Don Rood? What's his
Brad
first?
Rood.
Brad Rood. He is an artist who lives in the Walla Walla, Washington area, and he will create a large sculpture that will have animal forms as well as some incised symbols relating to some of the work that Public Works does. And then there will be an interior piece by, I'm also blanking on her name all of a sudden, an artist from Ashland who does work that is inspired by nature, details in nature. And she will be doing two kind of wall coverings that she will be designing. I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. Anyway, Keith can get that to you. But the building will be spectacular. The architects are Hacker. That's the firm that did the library seismic redo. So it's quite a prominent architecture firm. And I really credit the city with really paying attention to some design opportunities, because it's a win for us all. What about other comments on the labeling? All right, so Keith, I can send you the format for the library, and I can send you the format that I saw at Portland State, and you can take it from there. I haven't had time to do a drive-by, but I'm looking forward to doing that.
Okay.
Let's move on to really a follow-up to conversation that we started at our last meeting about really doing some visioning around public art and the city's role and what opportunities we might face. Courtney Knox-Bush is with us. She is certainly familiar with Spac and the city's planning processes overall. So I'm not sure how more to tee this up than to say, Salem is the capital city. We are one of the larger cities, not the largest in Oregon, but and we've got a very diverse population. We've got old neighborhoods, newly developed neighborhoods, a historic downtown, other historic districts, large parks. We're bordered by a river, a major river, and we've got the city's own collection. We also have neighbors like Willamette University, the state of Oregon, who have Chemeketa Community College, all of whom have art collections and public art presences in our city. And so as we talked at our last meeting, we were, and of course there is city code that guides what the work of the Public Art Commission is, but we thought it might be time to kind of take a step back, look at, where we've been, what we're doing, and what we might like to see moving forward. So Courtney, maybe is that enough of an introduction to let you make a few comments?
Yes, thank you, Chris. I think where we are, or where I understand this group to be, is just as you've stated, there's an interest in thinking about public art differently than we currently are thinking about public art. So I would just first say, is that accurate? We want to have a more expansive view about what public art is, what it means in our community, and where and how it can be featured. Yes?
Yes, I think that's, let's just say, a lot of the art activity has been centered around the downtown for a variety of reasons. It's where the city hall is, it's where our library is, it's where the new police station is, it's where some of our major parks are. I think Spac definitely has an interest in seeing public art in various places in the city. We'd love to see our mural code updated so that we are more encouraging of murals and creating opportunities for artists to create murals, and especially in all areas of the city. And then I've been working closely with the Salem Parks Foundation on the fundraising for the Echo Earth Globe, and I see opportunity for art in our parks. Could be seasonal, could be temporary, could be participatory, things like that. We've had some early conversations with the tribes about Native American work. So yeah, I'd say, Zach, go ahead.
And can I add I think this is sort of a question that I've had is, can SPAC have a more proactive role in promoting public art? There's clearly a role for the commission as a review board and to be reactive to requests for review, but can we, within our sort of governing authorities, can we encourage more murals? Can we set even internal goals? We'd like to see 10 more murals, and we'd like to promote that to neighborhood communities. How can we sort of help that conversation by adopting a more proactive stance, but staying within our lane? And so that I guess, to be very specific, was my kind of, obviously we're not city council, but what can we do? And that's, I think, where maybe Chris suggested you might have some feedback specifically.
I was also, wondering about we have such wonderful art, and we have the wonderful website now, and opportunities do arise, but I don't see that we're getting the information out to the general public and people who might be interested. I know that we're not really allowed to have our own social media site. I'm wondering if that's something we could work on so that there could be more promotion of what's going on with SPAC, what's going on with public art in Salem, and just a means for communicating more with the public also.
Can I ask a probably not very informed question?
Yeah, please.
There's a $300,000 bond measure that really deals with infrastructure. When they put together that bond measure, do they think about public art in relationship to that infrastructure?
We've had, Courtney actually appeared at an earlier meeting of SPAC to talk about the bond measure. And there are some sidebars around it so that, let's just use the example of the Echo Earth Globe, which is in need of repair. It's about a $400,000 project. We probably could only use a portion of the bonding money to support, let's just say, the infrastructure around that, like the fence or the foundation, as opposed to retaining an artist to actually do some conservation on the piece. Am I right about that, Courtney?
Yes, so Barbara, to your specific question, today, the framework is that there's a percent for art, 0.5% for art that goes for public structures that the city built. So that's why when we're building that shops complex out at Public Works, that's why there's an art piece accompanying accompanying that work. And so the current plan for the bond, and please be mindful that staff, because the measure is referred to voters, staff are not allowed to be perceived as advocating for the measure. So I am here only to provide you with information about the measure. The $300 million package has a bunch of things in it, bits and parts. 157 million is for streets and sidewalks. And right here, right now, the way the Salem Revised Code is structured, there is not a 0.5% for art coming with the streets and sidewalks projects. There would be for the, now you're testing me. I was up late last night at the home builders. not for the parks either. Parks infrastructure improvements are not part of the building projects, but there are 2 possible fire stations. And so that would generate some percent for art. And there are also some affordable housing dollars. If the city is the developer of those projects, that would generate a percent for art. And then there's a civic center seismic rehab. And so that would be very similar to the involvement in the art, in the library project. So, so just if the intent, and I'm not suggesting, but if the intent is to have more funding available for public art, SPAC may wish to recommend an adjustment to the current code language. You may wish to suggest, for example, funds that are capital improvements for parks should include a percent for art or some portion for art. You may wish to suggest that streets or sidewalks projects may include some infrastructure for art development. So these are all options, I think, if the intent is to expand public art offerings in our community. And so that's just one way to get more funding driven towards those projects, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I thank you for that. And can I ask a follow-up that also just may display my ignorance about how things are run? You mentioned the seismic upgrade. I understand the affordable housing, which I understand is supposed to have a couple of libraries, branch libraries associated with it. So at what point in time does this commission become involved in the planning for those things so that you're integrating sort of the public art into it? It just shows my not knowing and wanting to understand what the planning process is for those.
I'm so grateful for the question, and please, no qualifiers, right? I mean, this is a complicated measure, and we just make things complicated. So to answer your question, so first, we are kind of, there are steps. There's a regular sort of process. And the way we like to function is we like to have funding in place before we get into design. Then we like to have design move through, and there's actually, don't tell the engineers, there's actually several different phases of design, and there's involvement with the community. And that's probably where an invitation to SPAC would be made about, okay, now we have the money, we have the design, and how would you all envision, what would you like to commission for this space, that kind of thing. So it would be a bit.
Right. So what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that the public art comes in after the design, isn't integrated into the design.
I wouldn't say that as much as I would just say it would depend.
Okay.
So and I think the funding comes first, and then as design gets underway, there's a point where there's they generally know it will be a building about this size.
Right.
It will have this kind of a function, and then the inquiry would be made.
Okay.
Not they like to be really specific about percent complete, and it doesn't. It's important to them, but I do think, like, once we knew, okay, so for example, on the 2 branch libraries that could be co-located with affordable housing, that could take very many different shapes and sizes and configurations depending on the property acquisition. And so I think that part, there would have to be a couple of steps made before generally the engagement with SPAC would add value to the design and to the process, if that makes sense. But just if I could also say, should the bond pass, the affordable housing and public library projects are in the out years. The most emergent issue is really around the fire trucks and replacement of the fire engines and equipment. And the way we've forecasted or modeled this bond, it's 3 separate issuances. It's not $300 million all at once. It's very carefully orchestrated to keep the property tax rate constant over the 10-year process. And so that's the commitment that we've made to the voters should it be approved. So the rate won't change. There's a whole bunch of machinations about timing, but those kinds of things would be later in the acquisition and in the process. So I'm sorry for all that detail.
No,
Unfortunately,
I appreciate it. It's obviously I'm on a learning curve.
well, and this is very unusual what we're doing. So yes, sorry, Chris.
I was going to just say that here's an example of what occurred with the development of the police station. And that was a long time coming in Salem. But as we met with folks in the police department, they and we came together and looked at what could public art at a police station look like. So the police had visited other police stations. They saw buildings that they liked. They saw art elements that they liked. They shared that with us. We brought examples of, let's just say, terrazzo floor treatments, exterior sculpture treatments, wall sculpture treatments that would react to changing weather and wind and be kinetic. And then at a public hearing, I and a couple of other members of the commission took some kind of inspiration boards, and hundreds of people were at that public meeting to talk about their ideas of what a police station should look like and how it would function. And people, reacted, from the police chief down to neighbors, down to other people in the community. So I think I wholeheartedly agree with you that being involved in the conversation early is important, so that all options are open and it's not like, oh, here's a wall, or, oh, we missed the opportunity for the wall. And I do think, getting back to your earlier question about the bond proposal that's out there, We have been talking with Alan Dannon, one of the city's engineers, about what might happen if the bond passes and City Hall also gets a seismic upgrade. You know, that will obviously generate the 0.5% for art, but is there opportunity outside the building to, let's just say, maybe fix the broken and very valuable James Hansen sculpture that's in the Peace Plaza? Can another piece called The Drummer be relocated back at its original location? You know, what are the other options? So your question is spot on. I'm glad you're a new member of Spac.
And Chris, thank you for reminding me that that the Peace Plaza reimagination is part of the current proposal for the bond. And also, I would just say that last session, we, because we were planning the big birthday party, we did submit a request to the legislature for funding of the Peace Plaza reimagination. We weren't successful, but the council has directed us to try again. So we're doing that. The other thing that might be of interest to you is that connection between the fire station. So it's a connection that hangs under Commercial Street and goes over to the park, to Riverfront Park. That connection is also funded in the proposal for the bond measure. It's a latter year project because only half of the funding is in the bond. The other half is coming from urban renewal. So there's quite a bit of long-standing sort of ideas, community visioning that could be achieved. And so where I think we started this conversation was just sort of, I think, beyond buildings. Maybe I was inferring, but I think there was a little bit of interest, perhaps, Barbara, don't let me speak for you, but I think the question was, how are we imagining design of infrastructure to accommodate public art beyond buildings? Is that generally?
I think it's, well, I'm stimulated in a lot of ways by this conversation. I think I was trying to understand the visioning idea. And if you have a visioning idea for a city, the bond measure is certainly part of that. The new climate change agenda that the city has is another part of that. So all these different things are a part of that. And so when I think about envisioning and art, which is a summation of the city's image of itself, placed in a variety of positionings that respond to the diversity of the community, the fact that it's the capital city, you know, all these different things that define it that Chris was mentioning at the beginning of this. I start thinking, okay, how do these things interact with each other and relate to each other, and where do those conversations take place? And so that's where my mind went to.
And I think that at least I would hope that Spac could be, you know, somewhat of a spark to get these conversations going with the different stakeholder groups in our community. You know, there's a lot of talent here. It doesn't always come together at the same time. And when I think about a visioning process for public art, you know, one of my interests would be to bring some of these different points of view in our community together to talk about, you know, what could we do, and who's involved, and where would it happen, you know, and how it might come together. So that's, but this is a conversation for all of you, because after today, I become a private citizen again.
Courtney, I'm just curious, you know, I think it's a great conversation to be having, and you know, about the vision of you know, how Salem sees itself in relation to the arts and culture, and what role though specifically. I mean, I'm relatively new to the commission also. We all sort of are, other than Chris, but what is the process? Let's say we did want to recommend that that within the bond measure that there be, or not within the bond measure, it's probably too too late for that. But we wanted to recommend that, like what you were saying, that parks and sidewalks and things like that would also have the percent for art on there. What is the process? I mean, do we just put it in the minutes? Do we tell Keith, do we make a formal motion as a group and say we recommend, just wondering, because I haven't really experienced that yet with this group.
Zach?
Yeah, I wanted to bring it back around as well to that same sort of, we're in this conversation today, we're talking about supporting increased art funding and making sure that we as SPAC are participating early in funded projects and promotion and communication. This is the kind of discussion that leads me with my background to think, let's just write down what our strategic goals are, like those three, for example, and then use that. Can we as SPAC document that, write it down, and use it to guide a portion of our meetings so that these initiatives get remembered, discussed, and move forward in an organized way? And then how do we go about doing that? Or does that organization start to exceed our authority? That's kind of what I don't understand, is how proactive can we be and organized around not forgetting these things. So yeah.
So I see a couple different paths forward. Full disclosure, I worked on a strategic plan for Salem Public Art Commission. I feel like it was 16, maybe it was, do you remember, Chris? It was quite a bit ago. And at the time, the question that was motivating the group was more about how the work was done together and the focus was on promotion. What you're describing for me now feels a bit more expansive beyond SPAC's role. Not that SPAC shouldn't, it's my opinion that if you want this to go this direction, SPAC should be the convener of several conversations to move that forward. If you are intentionally, it depends on the lever that you're trying to push. If you want to change the code, there's a process for that. It involves an inquiry with council, and then you move forward, and there's several public hearings, blah, blah. That's easy enough to do. But if you're looking to be more expansive in the engagement, right? So if you want to be placing art in different places in our community, that's probably an invite to the Planning Commission to participate in the visioning. If you're thinking about streets and sidewalks, that's an invitation to there's going to be some transportation planning work going on. If to Barbara's point, it's even about climate, there's a subcommittee of council considering how to advance that work. So to me, it's these three discrete steps: increased art funding, be involved earlier in planning, and get more communication and awareness out. That is something I think this group can manage, and Keith and I can work on the communication aspects. We can let people know that who are in the planning work that you want to be more involved and engaged, and increasing the art funding could be just a tweak to the code. So if that's the scope of the work, we could probably advance that together. If the scope of the work is a larger community engaged conversation about and shared ownership of this idea of public art in our community, and a more expansive view about where it could be and how it should appear and how it should reflect us, and probably ticking a couple of the strategic planning goals of the city council. If that's the vision, that's a broader, longer term sort of initiative that would require perhaps a little bit more support beyond staff. So those are the things that I'm thinking. It just depends on what you want to try to achieve.
Zach?
To follow up, at those three things that have come out of this meeting, my instinct is that we would try to identify some kind of achievable initiatives within our scope. I'm not sure that those three are the three. And I guess one of the questions that I had is, how does this group, I know there are rules about email chains offline and needing to sort of maintain public visibility. How does this group sit down and make sure that the initiatives that we want to, pursue over the next, I'm thinking about continuity a little bit too. And how does, as the commission the makeup is changing and new members are coming in, how do we sort of hand off some sort of documented, written down thing to new people? How do we revisit it regularly? Not that it, and really all I'm talking about is, are those the three things that Spac wants to do? Should one be different? Should there be four? I don't know. Should we just do that in a meeting? Or is there some sort of space outside of a Spac meeting to sit down and kind of talk about what we as a group think the things are that we want to pursue? That's where I guess I'm not, I think that led to a discussion of, should we bring in you or other resources who have a strategic planning background, or, lead us through those kind of SWOTs or whatever, where we think through, like, what do we want to do and what's accomplishable and what's our capacity, blah, blah, blah. Should we do that as an exercise outside of this format, or should it be inside of this format and we devote a meeting to talking about it and then documenting it?
I think that with the meeting only by Zoom has actually limited the engagement of SPAC with the broader community. I mean, yes, people can watch a YouTube meeting, and yes, people can email public comment in, but I think that certainly in my time on SPAC, some of the more interesting conversations happened when people were in the same room at the same time, talking about, why we need improvements to the mural code, or we have a community of writers here and how can they become involved in public art, or how can we come together to make sure that the peace mosaic is not destroyed when a building was demolished. So I would hope that one of the strategic efforts moving forward would be to better connect with the broader community, so that a small group of people appointed to a commission are not the only people involved in a conversation about what public art could be in Salem. I just think that there are many people with ideas, and they are not calling into these Zoom meetings to share them with us. And I think, helping to facilitate a broader discussion would be very positive in Salem.
The meeting that was held in Pringle Hall, when was it, 2 years ago or already, maybe 3 years ago with the pandemic? Is that something that was being done on a regular basis? I mean, is that sort of I almost feel like it should be sort of a required thing to reach out to, the general public in Salem and say, hey, we're gonna, talk about and share what's going on with public art in Salem, and we welcome your participation and ideas. And then from there, we could sort of call ideas and then come up with the goals that we're talking about.
I'm not sure what the city's protocols are around face-to-face meetings now. I know that the decision was made to conduct board and commission meetings by Zoom, so that anyone of any ability can be part of the conversation from the comfort of their own home or wherever. But I don't know. I mean, there are things like Public Works Day that happened. There are things like Meet the New City Manager that happened. There are events that are happening in Riverfront Park. that are city sponsored, like performances on Friday night at the amphitheater. So it seems like, there might be a small window of when there was the birthday party to celebrate the 50th anniversary of City Hall. So, I find that there's positive energy around things like that. And there's more, I don't know, people seem to do more of that than call into a telephone, a video meeting.
So I'll just say, with regard to the kind of the city's practice, it is challenging to figure out when, right? So, so right now, because technology is our own technological capacity in our physical meeting spaces is lagging. We are trying to continue the majority of boards and commission meetings, including the council meetings, in this remote environment. We find we can't support hybrid participation, which we are now required to do, by the way, by public meeting law has changed over the course of COVID, our collective COVID experience. So, so yes, we can, if we want to invite a broader community conversation about public art, we can. I just want to also take a moment to remember that, the role of the commission is defined in code, in the Salem Revised Code, and the commission is advisory to council. So if you wish to embark on this broader initiative and invite community conversation about public art, you may just want to sort of, I don't know, is it forgiveness or permission or what is that? You may just want to sort of send them a quick little note, like, Chris, you've been coming and providing the annual updates, which are required by code, but you may wish to just sort of send them an information report, formally stating, it's not super formal, but just stating that, hey, we're interested in this area of inquiry and we plan to do these things to invite conversation, and so that they have a heads up and they can choose to participate and help even promote the work too. Can I, if it's okay with you, I would just take a quick minute to go over the last time we did a strategic plan, which I think is also, again, just changing in scope. But last time we had, I don't remember how many people we interviewed, but the commission had some ideas just sort of about thinking about public art and the role of the commission. And it was really, again, felt more about the commission and its role in public art. And so I have the questions, and I can get this, Keith, to you, but the primary questions were in these stakeholder interviews, what are the key factors affecting the Salem Public Art Commission? What are Salem's assets or strengths? And you'll recognize these, Commissioner Holt, as SWOT questions. What are the key issues? What kind of factors do you see changing public art in the next 5 years? Where would we be if the Art Commission was successful in this arena from your point of view? And then it was, again, just really standard sort of strategic planning questions about the actions that the commission could take. And we ended with really sticking to the primary purpose of Spac as stewards of the Public Art Commission. And it sounds like views may have shifted a bit from just that limited role. So stewards of the Public Art Commission, being really intentional about the curatorial capacity. And I think that was a reflection of sort of, at the time, not really having a clear sense of what was in the collection. And that, I think, has since passed, and there's a strong sense of what is in the collection. And then the last bit was to raise the profile of public art. And it sounds from some of the comments today that's an area that this group really wants to lean into. So, so I think we have some choices to make about what you want to try to achieve, and that will drive sort of the course of action. I'm hearing some pretty consistent things, but I don't know if we've heard from everyone. Are there other ideas or suggestions about sort of what drove you to participate in the commission and how you'd like to see it grow and change? Janelle?
think for myself, with this first meeting, I didn't know a lot about the commission, so I'm listening to everyone, and I agree with a lot of the comments that have already been communicated in the meeting so far, but I'm still I feel like a little bit kind of learning and just seeing how the group functions. So it's early on to have, a good sense of my vision for the commission. But I will say, being someone that grew up in Portland and then moving to Salem in my adult life, the art here makes it feel much more like a home. And so I think just if this group could continue to try to be involved in the design process and kind of proactively find more opportunities for that to be put in place around the community, that would be ideal.
Do you have a feeling, Commissioner Lilly, about public art in Salem and a vision for that may be different from what you currently experience?
I don't think so. I feel like making sure, I think the community feedback would be very helpful, because hearing from all the groups where people may feel underrepresented or that they're not seeing things that they connect with. I mean, I think the comment that was made earlier about not wanting this group to be the sole decision makers for all of Salem and really wanting to get that community feedback. I feel it's this group's role to represent the community. And if you're not getting the community feedback, that's really hard to do it. Then it's just, this small group in a bubble making a lot of decisions. If you're not hearing from the people that you're here to advocate for, it makes things difficult.
Thank you, Commissioner Lilly. Other ideas?
Eduardo, do you want to add anything?
You're on mute still, Eduardo.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Sorry. I was trying to figure it out. Yeah, so I was at the Pringle Hall meeting 2.5 years ago, and that seemed like it was going to take an amazing direction. And then the pandemic happened. And so, yeah, I really want to see how we function right now, or what we're focused on. And I even like that you guys I read the packet for the riverfront building. I think that's super awesome, but I just feel like for the future, I just kind of want to see Salem mapped out into potential areas. I could even go take pictures of sites, I don't mind, and be these are all the areas. Kind of have a sub-focus group where we reach out to that community and see the demographic in that particular area, and then go on from there, and what they would want to see in that area, as opposed to just trying to tackle everything all at once. I just kind of want to see a more structured layout of what we can and where we can affect public art in Salem. And yeah, I have people that have done it in Portland, but of course they go under a much easier kind of procedures to get art buildings, as opposed to what we have. And for me, I was in the process of trying to get a mural done downtown, but I had no idea about anything with the historical district. And that just kind of blew my mind. Okay, so there's areas that I can't and cannot push these kind of ideas onto, but I don't know what they are. So it's just at least having a sort of mapped out area, a green zone, here's what we can do, here's where we can do, what do these people want to see in this area, and then go on from there.
I really support the idea of some master planning, identifying some areas in the city or some building types, could be park areas where public art would make sense and where there's excitement and interest on, from a neighborhood or a neighborhood association, I think that would be just a useful process to go through. It's funny because I had no idea that the Pacific a producer group out by the State Fair was going to propose a giant mural, exactly in an underserved art area that we wanted things to go in. So there could be other businesses around the city that we're just not connected to, we're not aware of, where things could be happening. So I'd love to get out across the city and look at, areas that might be ready for something.
I think from my perspective, just being a community member, like a lot of once you get out of the downtown area, I see a lot of, underserved areas for art. So from my perspective, wanting my kids to, see art in their parks and things like that, which I don't feel like they see now, maybe focusing on some of those underserved areas would probably be my greatest area of interest.
I'm curious about how much more time we'd like to spend on kind of the broader conversation about a visioning process, or maybe it's time in our meeting to kind of talk about next steps so that we can move on to the rest of our agenda. I'm hearing that there is support for continuing this conversation. We would certainly welcome your involvement in that, Courtney. And so, can we have you back next month? Do we need to schedule a meeting outside the Spac meeting? What kind of action would all of you like to take today to at least have some agreement for moving forward?
May I make a suggestion that I can take what I've heard and I could create a scope of what I think could be achieved. And then we can have another conversation. Yeah, no, this isn't what I want to do at your next meeting. Or, yeah, that sounds right. And let's dive forward fast. One thing that I want to make sure I notice out loud is that I think, to your point, Eduardo, we can map all the possible spaces. I know, Keith, we could make some money in GIS, really excited about this. We could map all of the possible spaces where public art could be, and we could pay a particular attention to the underserved areas. But I just want to take a moment and notice that that would be current state, right? So it would mean not the historic district for exterior facades, because that's the current state. So I think if we pay particular attention, and when I think we're saying underserved, I think we're saying north, northeast, south, southeast Salem. Yes? North, northeast, south, southeast.
And West Salem.
Thank you. I forget about them. I don't live over there anymore. But if those are the areas that we're talking about, I think we can do a current state, and you all might look at that and you might say, no, that's not good enough. There are too many barriers to producing public art in public spaces or private spaces in North Northeast. And so what are the barriers? And then that changes the scope, right? So we can do a current state. I feel fairly confident we can do that, probably as a staff assignment, if we can find the right planners, Keith. So I think we can do something to that end, but then the question to you is whether that's good enough. And so why don't I just draft sort of a scope that would feel very normal, I think, Zach, to you, which is sort of like a situation assessment, a period where we pause and reflect and see what is in those areas that you've identified. And then it might cause you to consider action in some areas as an urgent priority, and in others, maybe we can hold back on that for a second and just focus our energies on this right now. Or
Yeah.
or we engage more horsepower, like a consulting firm to come in. I don't know if we have budget for that, Keith, but we would probably engage more horsepower and have a Sherpa, a guide through the process to do a bigger engagement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think where I'm trying to head anyway is if we agree, let's just say preliminarily that we have these sort of, and I'm going to add one because you brought it up based on the 2016 stakeholder feedback, that we as Spac want to recommend that we work to increase art funding, that we get involved in existing funding projects early, that we promote more public art, and that we have a mandate to curate and manage the existing collection and communicate about it to the community. So if those were our four things preliminarily, let's just say, and we agree also that we need to submit those four things to a broader community review to get feedback, to capture things that we don't have listed, that we haven't thought about, blah, blah, blah. Then a lot of what we've talked about are sort of hows, like actions we might take that hang under those things. Like we need to meet with the planning commission, or we need to recommend the code changes to include % for art in streets and roads and streets and parks, and whatever. We can sort of identify all of these possible actions. Where are all of the current state existing spaces that would make sense for public art? Then we can prioritize from there and say, all right, well, the capacity of this group and staff allows us to pursue how many strategic objectives in a cycle, and maybe it's only 2 or 1. I don't know, right? And so whatever it is, we focus on that first. But having this thing written down would have let us then revisit it at the end of a cycle and say, all right, we really focused on increasing art funding last cycle, whatever that cycle period is, and we did it. We recommended code changes. Some of those got adopted. We got stakeholder engagement from different blah, 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 blah. And now, having increased % for art funding in 3 other areas, we're going to focus on promoting more public art, particularly in West Salem, because that was identified as a current state art desert. And so we're going to go in and, focus on that. And that's going to have tactics associated with it. We're going to meet with whatever, so that we can, as these ideas come up, they're like ornaments that get hung on the strategic planning tree, and we can revisit them and not lose them. Because I feel like what I experience is that we, not just here, but everywhere in my life, is that a lot of this stuff gets lost if we don't hang it on a structure that we can remember and revisit and sort of document that we've done it or haven't done it yet, and it's still an opportunity to do it moving forward. That's my hope. So that's my emphatic. I'm in radical agreement with you.
Radical agreement.
Yeah,
Barbara?
I was going to say, thank you, Zach. Very well stated.
Comments from anyone else? So it sounds like a good strategy to me, but anyone opposed to having Courtney put together something for us? It'll come back to the next meeting. I do think engaging with the city council on an informal and informational basis would be smart. I know Councillor Varney has had conversations with me about some public art in West Salem. Councillor Nishioka is involved with the Rivers mural project. Incoming Mayor Hoy is certainly receptive to conversations. He and I chatted. So I see this as a really positive effort that should resonate with a lot of people in Salem. All right. Oh.
If I could just add, on the communication front, hey, Keith, you and I can solve that now, or start to solve that now. We certainly could build a program on some kind of a cadence to share or feature different pieces of the public art collection in our social media platforms and in our e-newsletter. And that's kind of a small universe, but we can certainly step that up. Does anybody have a day that works for art? Is there a day of the week that generally, Throwback Thursday, those kinds of things? Is there any day you guys would like to pick of the week?
No, but I think having really strong visual images that's the key for our audience.
What about previews of, like the work that's being done at the Public Works building? I mean, it's really exciting to know what the artists are working on now, and we're privy to that. But I think to generate excitement to the general public about, hey, this is where your tax dollars are going, and this is, at least, to the art community in particular, and to the general community, that there should be kind of an ongoing promotion and, touting of we've got these great projects happening, and you should be excited about it.
I agree. The new mural at the Pacific Coast Productions would be exciting. I mean, it's visually really fun. It's in a different part of the city. It looks good. And, who doesn't like a maraschino cherry?
And right now, it seems that all the information that people are getting are from thank goodness, we have some local newspapers from Salem Reporter and sometimes Statesman Journal, if people subscribe to those. But that's how they're finding out about these great projects. And it seems that there should be a relationship with the city to, that people could go, on if they do social media or some other way of getting this news from the city.
I also think the library project is getting a lot of attention. It's getting awards. The landscape architecture firm just got an award for the exterior work that they did. And so, talking about some of that stuff, I mean, blowing the city's own horn, to be honest with you, people would love to know. There are still people I know who have not been in the newly redone library. Has everybody on Spac been into the new library?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good.
My children have their own office there now.
And the collection there, I went on the tour that Paula did on the birthday celebration at Civic Center, and I was blown away by the art that the city has there. And a lot of it is just tucked in the corners. So you have to really go looking for it. And I'm wondering, maybe that's something we could talk about, is to have regular kind of tours of the art there, so people do get to see what's there.
Yeah, I think the opportunity as far as social media is concerned is to really show people that don't know about these things, that maybe even are outside of the art community, and really just show them that we live in a place that they can be proud of. And it gives us an opportunity to show them from their homes what's going on in the rest of the community, the beautiful things that are being created. And then I think that just increases engagement.
I do want to just second the idea of some ongoing tours, both of the architecture at City Hall and of the library. I gave one of the tours at the birthday party, but having the Ian from Docomomo there to give the architecture tour was really great. And then Paula did a fabulous job with the art tour of the library. And I do think that I think the general public would really enjoy getting that information. So I'm throwing that out to the city. I'm sure Spac could accommodate the art tour, but having the Docomomo architecture tour was
Thank you. I think we have some I think they did some story mapping for us that we should certainly republish.
Mhm.
And I'll work with Keith to build an ongoing campaign in our social media platforms to just sort of take moments to feature individual pieces. And Chris, I hear your reminder about having some high quality, high resolution images of the works themselves. That may be something that we lose sight of when we are low on staffing. And so I apologize for that, and I'll try to spur movement there again.
Well,
So
that's
in terms-
okay. And I would think that members of SPAC, as they're out in the community, can take photos and share them. Like I shared some with Keith this morning. So, and he was out at the mural site yesterday. So, people can, if the city's receptive, people can just send you stuff and you can just use it.
Yes, and we have folks who have photography and videography skills on staff
Right.
now, so we could be deploying them more effectively. And I'm going to prompt that on my other screen. But if just in terms of next steps, and I want to be mindful of time, what I will do next is I will compile these notes and I'll try to sort of sketch out what I think is kind of consensus for next steps. And I'll come back, Keith, you'll remind me at the November meeting, and we can have conversation. You can push back and we can build something that really resonates. And then I would advise, just because I feel like it, that you might give the council a heads up about this kind of this new direction that not new, but recommitment of focus that the commission wants to make, and just sort of cross that off your list so you can keep moving forward.
Yes, and that is due at by the end of the year, correct? Chris, have you've been doing those annual reports to council, right?
Right.
Okay.
I've done at least the last one I did by Zoom. It is really great to be in the council chamber and engage with the council in person. Because then you really there's good opportunity for conversation, and it's not as much fun on the Zoom, sadly. But it would be great if there is another tour, for example, of artwork, to get some of the city councilors over there and on the tour. And I think there'd be great opportunity with the opening of the Public Works Operations Center to get some of that done. Or when the mural is complete, to get a couple of people, the mural by the State Fairgrounds is complete, to get a couple of them to go over and see it in person.
And Chris, at the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned that you were stepping off as of this meeting. So how does the committee make that report to city council, I guess, if you're not going to be on the commission at that time?
Well, I would assume that whoever is elected chair will give the report. The report there's a lot of staff involvement. So Keith, I guess, would be taking over. I know Heather helped, and then just making sure that everything that you want the city council to know is in there. And obviously how the work of SPAC contributes to the achievement of the city's overall goals. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening. This is not onerous, and you're talking to a group that has many other things on its agenda. So it's high level, good news, policy issues that need to be corrected. And talked about the deterioration of the Echo Earth globe. You cover all the bases, but not in super deep. And they get a written report in advance, and then whoever is making the report kind of goes through that, but they have the report in writing. So you're not reading it.
Just to assuage fears, staff writes on your behalf the report, and you get to feature the pieces that you wish in your oral statement. So just to assuage fears, staff author.
And Oh, and I can also send out, Chris, if you're okay with it, your presentation and the staff report from last year to the
Yep,
council.
great, Keith.
Commission.
Thank
Okay.
you. All right, I'm just mindful of the time. Courtney, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for agreeing to help us with the next steps. And I know, this is exciting and important work. So let's move on to another.
Thank you.
Big-
I'll see you
big
next
com-
time. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Courtney.
Thank you.
We've touched a little bit on the mural program. Susan asked that we really take some time at this meeting to talk about what we could do as a commission to make the existing Salem mural program more accessible, more easily understood. How can we help identify, right now we are reactive in terms of responding to requests from building owners. How might we move forward to being more proactive in helping to identify sites? How can we make sure that people who wish to create murals in our community have the, any professional development, any training? How are we assisting those people? And then I want to talk about the mural that's going on over at the Pacific Coast Producers. But Susan, why don't you offer some comments?
Yeah, this is I understand this is a much longer conversation that probably we don't want to take that much time. So we won't have a super long meeting. I just wanted to make sure the conversation is continued. This conversation's been going on for quite a while in the commission, and we touch on it almost every meeting in terms of, should murals be more, should there be more of a community art type designation for certain types of murals? And I just want to keep the question out there, is that are we really serving the Salem community with our current mural policies that are pretty stringent in terms of requirements and easements, and having it be accepted into the public art collection? And I know that I've done a little bit of research on some other mural programs. And I know that from what I understand, Salem's mural program was patterned after a Portland program. And I'm not sure how long ago that was, but since then, Portland has adopted a two-prong program where they have one that is similar to ours, where it's really very city controlled. And then they have something called a original art mural program, which is much more community based. And so they've adopted, as you know, I'm sure you've all been to Portland and seen all the wonderful murals. I know, Zach, you've got some great murals on the building where your business is. And I'm not sure which programs, which murals were created under, but it's a much easier, user-friendly way to do murals than our current policy. And there may be room for both. As a matter of fact, there was a study, I did a little bit of a deep dive into mural policies yesterday and found an academic paper that was written by some academics at the Technion in Israel, and they cited Portland's two programs in their study. I did send it over to Keith. It's a long academic, study, but it talks about all of the different reasons why people would want public art in their city, and also just the different levels of how stringent the procedures are. Yeah, see if you can see at the bottom there. It's just kind of a definition of the two different ways of approaching the method of consent and the ownership and the public funding and design review. And these are the two programs that Portland has. So I'm just suggesting that we take a look at these different ways of approaching murals and then make some kind of a recommendation to the council to change the code that's there now. And I know that it's going to take some more research and figuring out. So
this is cool. Yeah, this is neat. Thank you, Susan. Do you think, is there an analog to RAC, or Prosper Portland, or I know we use some Prosper Portland grants, and I wasn't actually involved in the mural funding on the building that my business is in Portland, but I can get that information because I know there was funding for it. That seems to be a missing piece, or at least a piece I don't understand particularly well for Salem is, I know there's some Oregon tourism. I've heard us talk about there being maybe some Oregon tourism grants for street murals, but I may have misheard that. So I don't know. From a recommendation standpoint, I would love to have that wrapped in to the like if we're gonna promote more public art, then part of our recommendation I think has to be some sort of matching funding from somewhere. I don't know where those sources are right now, but
Barbara?
I would just like to, Keith, send that to us, that article to us to read, because it's useful. I'm familiar with the only, but I think what you said, Zach, about needing to determine how these things get funded is the bottom line, and also really thinking about the lifespan. I noticed that in the little bit we got to see, the lifespan is 5 years. So then what do you do at the end of those 5 years in terms of the piece? And there's a whole new kind of digital application to creating public art that they're using, believe in Vail, Oregon, for the many, many murals. They have 37 murals in Vail, so that you can actually have them potentially for a lifetime.
I would totally support looking at a funding stream. Right now, there is no equivalent of the Regional Arts and Culture Council in Salem. There is no funding for murals in Salem, with the exception of the 2 murals downtown, which the city paid for so that we could kind of have a demonstration project on 2 city-owned structures. But it would be great as we think about, the vision for public art to help the city council and the city understand that in order for a program to really be successful, there has to be some public investment. Yeah.
I was on the City of Milwaukee Art Committee some years ago, and they were trying to drive a mural program without any public funding, and it basically couldn't work. It was sort of what it boiled down to. It was hard to get traction on increased murals, especially large scale murals on buildings, which are very expensive, without some sort of public participation. So again, that's what that public participation is probably outside our scope, but recommending it clearly is well within our scope.
Right. I think also just in terms of funding sources, different jurisdictions in Oregon fund these things in different ways. There is some funding available on the state level. Travel Salem has been investing in the street murals in Salem. Their investments are pretty low dollar amounts, certainly not even 50% of the cost of producing something. But other jurisdictions have used local economic development money And we should take a look at that. I mean, I could, having been a funder for most of my career, I could help with that, you know, contribute to that conversation. I would also like to, as we think about ways to make the mural code sleeker, I visited the Pacific Coast Producers mural yesterday and again this morning. On both visits, I was approached by people who saw me at the site taking photographs, and they are tremendously excited about the mural. They're super proud of it. This morning, two gentlemen approached me, and this was a picture taken at noon yesterday. The artist Blaine Fontaine is on the higher lift, but they are moving very quickly. That was day 2 of production. And thanks for sharing this, Keith. It was, I didn't have a chance to talk to them because they were really working hard and I didn't have a lot of time, but the mural looks great. This next image is the one I took this morning. So you can see that they kind of finished some of the mountain at the left and then moved on to the maraschino cherry. But they are moving. They are getting a lot done. They were not on site at 8:30 this morning. But I will say the two gentlemen who approached me on the street both said, can you please help us get the permission to paint the tanks? And the original proposal did call for, yes, the painting of the cylinder tank. And then there was going to be a little bit of signage on the tank on the legs. So I do think working with the city's legal staff and this building owner to be able to get that permission granted is going to be important for this mural to look as good as it can look. And I'm not sure whether the fact that the cylinder is round and the wall, it's not a flat wall, is a barrier or what, but there are many examples of murals that are not on flat surfaces. And in fact, I know I've been involved in conversations with Peter Fernandez, the head of Public Works, who talked about the potential for Spac to site a mural on one of the city-owned water towers. So, you know, as we look at getting the code to work and creating an environment where everybody who wants to be involved in mural production can do so. Oh, there's my shadow down at the bottom.
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Is this your picture?
Yes, this is yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got a wider angle than I got this morning. But anyway, I just hope we can have that on the record as something that we might need to address sooner rather than later. All right, comments from others about, you know, taking a deeper dive into the murals, looking at some of the best practices elsewhere. And as Zach suggested, you know, being purposeful about this so that we are not just talking about it, but we're all the, you know, gears are hooking together. So we're actually making progress on some improvements.
I might, if no one objects, I might start a little, for lack of a better word, a mind map, just a kind of those 4 things. I know that I've already forgotten her name. That's embarrassing. Miss
Courtney.
Courtney is going to come back with a detailed plan, which is great. But just for our just tracking purposes, I'm literally going to write down those 4 things on a piece of paper, and then I'm going to write down the things we talk about under them. So, you know, Susan, your mural work for me feels squarely under promote more public art, right? Like, we want to have more murals. So how are we going to get more murals? And then there's going to be a whole set of deliverable sort of tasks that you're already sort of intuitively doing, right? Like, let's do research about how other people do it. And turns out other people do it the way Portland does it. Well, that's convenient. Portland's right next to us. What are the best practices? Well, we found them. Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to go talk to funding sources. We need to, and then members of this group can subcommittee out and do those things and try to, right? And then we can report back. But I'm going to start writing it down just so that, mostly because it's a compulsion for me. This is how my brain works. And if I don't do that, I start to get uncomfortable. So I'm going to do it. And then I'll just hold it up from time to time. How about that? Until we have a more formal sort of system.
That would be great. I vote yes, that Zach should do that for sure. And get, you know, if more power to you, Zach, that you're able to put it all together. I know that's what you do.
I have whiteboards. I hold whiteboards close. You're probably actually really lucky we don't have one on Zoom, because I'd be like triangle.
Yeah. It is a shame that we can't meet in person. You know, I know that it's a city entity and we have to follow the city rules. But it is a shame, because I think we you know, get more kind of juicy ideas and things flowing. But is there any way we could do that, Keith, or is this, yeah?
Yes, in city policy, there is a pathway for us to meet in person, whether it's on a field trip, an excursion, or workshop. I just have to let the Public Works Director know that there is an interest, and he has to grant permission for that. But there is a process.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of that.
Okay.
All right, can we, knowing that all this is going to be captured and that the murals will be a high priority for moving forward, can I move to the next agenda item? Okay, updates. I can quickly give an update on the Library Foundation. So a little bit of background. There's an extensive art collection at the Salem Public Library. Some of it is owned by the city. Some of it has been acquired over the years by the Salem by the Salem Library Foundation. And they have wanted to keep those collections separate for some time. When the city's art collection was appraised several years ago, the Library Foundation did not want to have its own collection appraised. They didn't have the funding at the time. So the collection is extensive, it's valuable. We don't know what the exact value is. I talked with Kate Van Umerson this week. She is the Library Foundation staff director. They are still very interested in transferring their collection to the city because they really don't have the staff to take care of it. And the Spac collaborated with them on the reinstall of the entire collection when the library was renovated. It all looks good. All the labeling is done. It is installed. And she does not have time to deal with it right now. She's going to take a break this fall. So they will get back to us in January, but this is definitely on the horizon for happening. And it would be gifted to the city.
Quick question. Is there I think the answer is yes. This just reveals my ignorance, but is there an online or other inventory record of all of the city's works and where they're located, condition report, all that kind of stuff? Is there a database of the artwork?
Yes, it may not be on the website. Is it on the website right now, Keith?
No, it's not displayed. Not everything from the library collection is online.
Yeah, but it would not take much to pull that together.
Yeah, we have a comprehensive inventory of it.
Okay.
And then when the library collection was actually looked at, and full disclosure, that work, while the work was out of the library, it was actually stored at X Gallery in Portland, which is owned by Zach before he was a commissioner. So we did a condition assessment of all the work. Anything that needed to be repaired was repaired. So there is nothing in the library collection now that is in need of assessment or repair. And everything, a team of people, which actually went on to receive an award for this work, wrote all the label copy, fact checked all the artist bios, and they did an outstanding job for over 80 works of art. I was not involved. In fact, nobody on the call today was involved. But all that work is done. The only thing that's missing really is an appraisal of the value of the collection, which I think the Library Foundation will actually now do. Anyway, we'll come back, Susan.
Does that database or whatever format that's in include the label copy and the links to the bios?
No, I don't think so, but it should. I mean, that would be something to do, to attach the record with the bio and the background on the work of art to the record for the painting or the sculpture.
That's why I was asking was, if as we consider adopting 80 new works of art into the city collection formally, how do we capture all that information and make it easy for the commission, either as currently constituted or whoever comes next, to be able to kind of regularly fulfill that other mission that we talked about, right, of stewarding the existing collection.
Just to be clear, there are over 80 works in the library collection that includes both the city and the foundation work.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is our complete database of the pieces of artwork. And there is another document with links to the photos, but this is not for public consumption. It has some of the 111 so far.
It looks like this might have been created by the person who did the appraisal when that was done. I do think making sure all the records are up to date would be just something for Spac to collaborate with Keith on. To just make sure we're capturing everything, because things do move around. So for example, in the city manager and mayor's office suite, a piece is going to move into the mayor's office out of the city manager's, just keeping track of that stuff, and then updating some of the label copy to, if we use the library as the model, then making everything else that's not in the library up to the same standard.
Yeah, it might be worth, I only mention this because it's part of my business, and I can introduce that to the rest of you in more detail at some point, but having a collection management system that includes notes and the ability to have photographs, that's something we work with all the time. So we have a collection management system that manages all of this stuff. It might be something for us to think about doing. There's a bunch of different tools that allow for that, and that can easily be made public, so that, or elements of it can be made public facing through, embedding it in a website so that the public could go in and look at and search the public art collection, see pictures of it, and maybe even its location so they could go, try to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that that's part of when Courtney was talking about knowing what the current state is in North and Northeast and South and Southeast Salem, knowing what's in the current collection, both, across the city, is also really important. And I don't know of any way to have any information beyond what's on the website. So if there's other information that there's a way to access it, I'd be really grateful for it.
Keith, if it's interesting or useful to you, I'd be happy to chat with you offline about the systems we use and how that works.
Very much so. I'm always involved in asset management systems for utilities. So an asset management system for artwork is right up my alley.
Cool.
All right, let's go to the next one, because it kind of connects to what we've been talking about. There is a story map that is on the city's website now. It has selections from the collection. So, should there be more works? Are there particular works that, people feel strongly about having on this tour? let's take a look at this. It's got, right now it is a selection. And so, and I view this as a work in progress that can get added to. Descriptions can be, refined, added to, what have you. But comments?
Well, I found it very user-friendly. So
It is, I will say it is user-friendly. Yeah.
Great.
I think it would be fun to get some of the, works in the library on it. I didn't go back on this story map before today's meeting, but the library's on it. Can you just show what works of art in the library are on it? Oh yeah, Betty LeDuc. Mm-hmm.
And it's organized by floor.
Got it. Okay. Oh, quite a few more than I remembered.
Yep.
Anyway, what I might suggest is that people kind of take a close look at this. And then if you've got some ideas for improvements or additional works or swapping things out, that you just be in contact with Keith.
I just wonder if there should be a separate heading for murals, just to kind of separate that out. I've just seen that on in my research, it gets separated out, other cities separated out. So the downtown civic center.
Yeah, and this is for all the new commissioners as well. This is pretty much our landing page for all the information that I post to the public. So this is our public our story map. This is a street painting programs, rules and bylaws. This is our public mural program. Some additional resources, the council itself or the commission itself, and these are the public notices and public hearings that we've had thus far. And then our meeting agendas and minutes are posted down here as well. So this is where I would recommend going for information. What we want to do, we talked about this earlier, is to kind of put a QR code to have it put on existing brochures, as well as share with the neighborhood associations to put on their brochures. So this is just a mock-up of what a 2x2 square sticker would look like that we plan to put on some of the pamphlets, and it takes you directly to the website.
Keith, not to sound like a broken record, but I also did a search about murals on the city website, and I was like, you have a thing like, I want to do this, and so I put in, I want to paint a mural, or I was like, mural information. Nothing came up.
No, and it's the search is optimized by PDFs, which does not make sense to me. So that is an issue that our web team is aware of.
Okay, well, just to wrap up this agenda item, if you have thoughts about the story map, please send them to Keith and he'll follow up.
Yep.
Okay. Potential Spac field trips to look at public art elsewhere in the city. I hope this can still happen because there is a lot of work that I think people are not aware of. The woman who was staffing the public art stuff at the Oregon Arts Commission recently resigned. So probably we're not going to have a lot of opportunity until that job is filled. I think they're actively trying to fill it. But I know that there is, and so for new commissioners, I used to be the director of the Oregon Arts Commission. So Oregon has one of the largest state level public art programs in the country. Obviously, we're in the capital city. There's a lot of interesting work across the city that would be fun to see. And the state treasurer just built a new building over by the old Costco. And I've heard that there is some interesting work in there, and the building is quite striking as a work of architecture. So I think just, you know, taking advantage of the potential to collaborate with others, and, you know, remembering the city is not the only public art game in this town. We have other people who are doing a lot of work also. Have all of you been to see the Cremains Memorial at the Oregon State Hospital?
One of my favorite places in Salem to go.
Yeah, that's another very interesting, and
Extraordinary.
it's the only national award winning public art project in Salem. So again, you know, it would be good to just get out and see some of this work, and it's free. And, you know, I'm sure we could get permission from Peter Fernandez to do that. Maintenance, ongoing thing. You want to talk about this, Keith?
Yes, there's been no movement on the drummer and rooster because of I notified Lee that our plans to possibly incorporate it into the outdoors again, and so I'm in talks with Alan Dana to see when and how that's gonna come to be, but it's on hold for now.
Okay, great.
And the goods. Oh,
go ahead, Keith.
And the good sense, I confirmed with Parks that there is no water source, so I have to find one. I'm thinking of using a water truck, but that's not high on my priority list right now.
Okay. And interestingly, Good Sense is a sculpture by Lillian Pitt and Sarah Lynn and Michael Hildy. And Lillian Pitt just received a big award for her lifetime of achievement as a sculptor and a Native American artist. So, and we have a nice piece of hers in our collection.
Just about that sculpture. I mean, I haven't been over there, but you know, in front of it, but I passed by it a lot. And I did just realize that the negative space in between the legs is a bottle.
Yes.
I did not know that. And it's so, you know, appropriate. So, yeah.
There is a lot, every single element of that sculpture has kind of a hidden meaning. It's very subtle. And that is the silhouette of a Coke bottle between the legs. Let's move on to new business. And we have already touched on the fact that we've got 2 public hearings coming up, November 9th. So I hope everyone has that on the calendar, because you will need a quorum in order to be able to take action on these 2 requests.
Chris, may I?
Yes.
All right. So this is the first consideration that we're going to be the commission is going to be hearing on next month, and it is an existing piece of artwork. The legal team has allowed this to be considered as a mural because it was painted before the mural program came to being. So if so, that's why this is an existing a piece that we're going to be considering into the collection. The second piece is a proposal for a new mural on Front Street. It's right across of the Riverfront Park. This is the mixed-use building, an L shape. They propose I can't pronounce, Trump de Leo.
Oh, trompe-l'oeil.
There you go. See, look at that's my okay. Lots of felines too. And so that's the view from the side. And I just wanted to show what I found in Eugene recently.
Oh, look at that.
And it was really detailed. Oh, I'm sorry. With images, and so it looked really great. So I thought that was a good example that I found as well. But yeah, so next meeting is going to be full, so there's going to be 2 public hearings, and at the end, we may have plans for a new mural in Salem. And that's all I have for that. So public comment is 30 days. These have been emailed to you and posted online, as well as on the front doors, entrances to the building.
Keith, I have a question. Are we as individuals allowed to post anything about this on our personal social media?
Absolutely. This is a public comment period. This is when the applicant will be going around to different neighborhoods, businesses, organizations to get support. I'm expecting letters, phone calls, and emails to be coming in.
So we can use the images from the packet.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And you can forward this packet to your constituents or whoever you want to.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, our next action item is the election of a new chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. So I'm going to open the floor for nominations. And if you are also interested in taking on a role of the chair or vice chair, please make that known.
I'd like to nominate Zach Hall to be chair of the Salem Art Commission. I think he's already demonstrated his substantial skill set that would be great to have in a leadership position on this commission.
I would second that. All right, further discussion, further nominations of a chair. And Zach, I'm assuming that you would take this on if elected.
I would, yeah, I thank you. I guess a question I have is there any flexibility around this meeting time? I think if I'm going to step into that role, I might need to move it into the afternoon. So that's a question I guess I have for us or Keith. I don't know if there's a.
I'm open to rescheduling it. It's really dependent upon the commission.
So I think the answer is yes.
Afternoons are easier as well.
Yeah, if I could do it, if we could do it at a 2:30 timeline, that would be that would make it easier for me so that I'm not at risk of needing to leave the meeting for other work.
I'd be okay with that, especially that I'm not a morning person. So
I'm fine.
Okay, so it sounds like 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. on the second Wednesday of the month, starting in December, because November is already scheduled and noticed. Okay.
All right, let's get back to the, let's go back to, is your nomination a motion, Susan? You're muted. Susan, you're muted.
do I need to restate it?
Sure.
I move that we accept Zach Hull as the new Spac chair. And I also wanted to just offer immense thanks to Chris Darcy for her service over this long period of time. It's been exemplary and amazing. So thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, hearing none opposed. What about a nomination for a vice chair of the commission?
Susan, not to nominate each other here, but are you interested in, I would nominate you as a vice chair.
I would second that.
I'd accept that. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the nomination of Susan Napak as vice chair of the commission, say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. Well, we are now at 11:27.
Chris?
Keith, go ahead.
Chris, I'd like to echo Susan and thank you for your years of service. And as a thank you and I just wanted to present to you virtually a pair of Oregon Capitol socks, one for the House and Senate.
Keith, you are a mind reader. I have, thank you so much. I have to say that to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Civic Center, our friends from the Oregon State Capitol Foundation came over and they had a display and they brought lots of swag, including these socks. And they had a contest. You could enter the contest to win a pair of socks. And I entered the contest, but I did not win. And so I'm so happy.
You'll have to stop by and pick it up sometime.
I would be delighted to.
Did
Wow,
you forget your water bottle, Chris?
No, maybe I can get a water bottle
Throw
too.
in a water bottle for her?
Yeah, for sure.
That was there was a lot of great activity at the day of the 50th anniversary. And yeah, thank you, Keith. That's really fun.
Thank you.
That is really fun. All right, well, we're now at 11:28. Are there any further comments coming from the commission? All right, hearing none, I would encourage all of you to take a spin by the mural out on Woodrow Street, because it really is shaping up by the hour. And it's been a delight to be involved with the Salem Public Art Commission. And with that, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 11:29 a.m.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Goodbye.